everybody, and welcome to the Good Stories Podcast. We are nearly to the end of 2025, so I'll say it right now. Happy New Year! I'm Jody, here with Steven, and today we're celebrating the end of this year and looking forward to 2026. That's a really big number.
Yeah, the numbers used to be smaller.
Very much, yes. Before we get going, though, I do want to send out a thank you to our top 5 new download locations this week, because I like it. Minneapolis, Minnesota, thank you. Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. Belmont, California. Gaithersburg, Maryland, and Charlotte, North Carolina. So thank you to the people out there listening from those locations. I just wanted to acknowledge that we look at the list of who's listening. It's really hard to tell who's out there. There's very little actual information, but it's fun to see new locations pop up. So I appreciate that. But this week we are talking through New Year's things. So those moments when we look both back kind of and forward at the same time. We're going to begin with the iconic song, Auld Lang Syne, a familiar refrain that talks about memory and friendship, and I think what it means to carry the past with us as we step forward into something new. And from there, we're going to talk about some stories of new beginnings. And I hope as we talk through these that they help all of us reflect on both endings and beginnings. Time for a poem.
For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll tak a cup o' kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne. Should old acquaintance be forgot, and never brought to mind, should old acquaintance be forgot, on Auld Lang Syne. And surely you'll be your pint stoup, and surely I'll be mine, and we'll tak a cup o' kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne. We twa have run about the braes, and pooed the goings fine, but we've wandered mony a weary fit, sin Auld Lang Syne. We twa had paddled in the burn, fra morning sun till dine, but seas between us bride have roared, sin Auld Lang Syne. And there's a hand, my trusty frere, and gives a hand o' thine, and we'll tak a right good willy wot, for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll tak a cup o' kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne. My apologies to Scotsmen everywhere. I read this to honor Rabbi Burns, not to insult him with my poor Scotch pronunciation. What a great poem.
I thought you did pretty well.
Well, for a guy who can't roll his R's.
That makes it extra difficult.
For anything Scottish.
So I did read that version as well, and I tried to guess on a couple of the words in verses that were less familiar to me what they meant. There were 2 things I could not figure out. So I also have the English.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this came out as a poem, I believe, in 1788 by Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet. I don't actually know much about Robbie Burns, other than they refer to him as Robbie Burns. What do you know, brother?
I like to think a little bit about him. Scottish TV, they did a poll. It was, 10 years ago or so. They polled the Scots on who the greatest Scotsman ever was. And Robbie Burns won. He was considered by the Scots of the time to be the greatest Scotsman. Interesting guy. He was born in fairly poor circumstances and really kind of struggled with money for a lot of his life. When Scotsmen talk about Robbie Burns, they usually use the phrase, Robbie loved the ladies. And the ladies loved Robbie.
Is that why he's the most popular?
Maybe. He was a bit of a womanizer from a young age. He did marry and had, I think, 9 or 10 kids with his wife. I don't think very many lived into adulthood. And at one point, he was really money-strapped, though, and he was about to take a job actually in Jamaica. I think he was going to work on like a slavery plantation or something. It was pretty brutal. But before he went, he actually was able to sell some of his songs, make some money, and the rest is history, and he stayed in Scotland till his death. Again, was never affluent, never wealthy in his life, but well loved, and he has become somewhat of a cult ever after of just how much people love his poetry. So many of his poems have a profound meaning. Auld Lang Syne has certainly become kind of the international poem for New Year's Day. Songs like, Ye Scots Wha Hae with Wallace Bled have become almost an unofficial anthem for the Scottish nation. So many of his songs are about love, and he has just wonderful love poetry. Some of his lines from his poems have entered into the common parlance. I think anybody that I know has heard the line, "The best laid plans of mice and men." You've heard that before?
I have.
Do you know the next part?
No.
"Gang off the gley." That's harder to remember because it's in Scotch. It means often go awry. And so it gets the point, but just a wonderful poet and a really interesting guy.
I knew best laid plans often go awry. It was the of mice and men part. I didn't know that was part of it.
Yeah, the best laid plan. Well, here, I can read it to you. Just a moment.
Best laid plans. Steven's having a pronunciation issue tonight.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better. My apologies to...
Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hilarious.
I've decided to just embrace it. It's what I do now. I just throw myself at it. Let me do a couple other Scotch poems from Robbie Burns because we'll get to the mice. But I enjoy this one very much on Scotch drink. This one is a summary of the Proverbs of Solomon. One of the passages. "Gie him strong drink until he wink. That's a winking in despair. And liquor good to fire his blood. That's pressed with grief and care. There let him bouse and deep carouse, with bumpers flowing o'er, till he forgets his love or debts, and minds his griefs no more." I like that one.
Are there multiple stanzas about Solomon's Proverbs? Is that what that poem is?
No, this one is actually, I think, an introduction to another longer poem. So this one is just like a little brief snippet that I found in the book here.
I assumed you know more about Robbie Burns than me because you annually attend a Burns Night celebration. I don't think I've ever been to one.
The Burns Night is fantastic. It's held every year on his birthday or around his birthday, as close to it as we can get. Usually it involves eating, drinking, and reading Robert Burns poetry. And hopefully you can get a true Scotchman to read the poetry, and it just makes it so much better. But if you don't have a true Scotchman around, go ahead and just try it yourself and have fun. And the more Scotch you consume, the more you can throw yourself at it with gusto.
That seems like it would be approved.
Indeed. Haggis is very commonly consumed as these as well, which I also recommend.
Can I say my quote about haggis?
Please do.
I think most Scottish cuisine was based on a dare. It's from an old Mike Myers movie that I don't know if I can recommend it, but it's so funny.
I recommend it. I love it. It's So I Married an Axe Murderer. It's great.
I was thinking of an age recommendation with that brother. I don't know.
College.
Yeah, older.
Older.
But in that one, there are bagpipes and many references to Scottish cuisine, including haggis, which is not nearly as terrifying as people think it is.
No, it's basically spicy meatloaf is the way to think about it. Most modern haggis is not actually boiled in a sheep's stomach. Usually they use a plastic bag, and it's just good. It's a really spiced kind of meatloaf type meat, so I strongly recommend it.
The ones I've had were more dry than meatloaf, kind of like a stuffing, like a dry stuffing that would crumble out. But yeah, pretty good, salty deliciousness.
Mm-hmm. All right. Since I'm enthusiastically reading Scottish poetry poorly, I'm going to do one more. This is where that famous line about the best laid plans comes from. This is the Robert Burns poems To a Moose, a Mouse, on turning her up in her nest with the plough, November 1785. Wee sleekit cowering timorous beastie, oh, what a panic's in thy breastie. Thou need not start away so hasty with bickering brattle. I would be laith to rin and chase thee with murdering pattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has provoked nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt na whiles, but thou may thieve. What then? Poor beastie, thou maun leave. A diamond ichor in a thrave saw my request. I'll get a blessing with the lave, and never missed. Thy wee bit housey too in ruin, it silly was in the Windsor's thruin, and nothing now to big a new one, o foggage green. And bleak December's winds ensuing, both keen and small. Thou saw the fields laid bare and waste, and weary winter coming fast, and cozy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell, till, crash, the cruel coulter passed out through thy cell. That wee bit heap o' leaves and stibble has cost thee mony a weary nibble, and now thou's turned out for all thy trouble, but house or hold, to hold the winter sleety dribble, and cran through cold. But, Moosey, thou art to know thy lane, improving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang off the gley, and leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed compared with me. The present only toucheth thee, but och, I backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward, though I canna see, I guess and fear.
A much more bleak endings and beginnings.
But somewhat appropriate, right?
I like the commiseration with the mouse.
Yeah, you felt bad for the little guy.
Moosey.
There's lots more Robert Burns to read, but I think I've subjected you to enough for one sitting.
I don't mind the reading because I can't speak Scottish either. So to me, like, I know it's not right on, but yeah, it's fun to kind of just jump into it. So the song we're talking about today, the poem that has been turned into a song, is called Auld Lang Syne. It's not old, it's A-U-L-D, Auld Lang Syne, which means something like old long since or times long past. It's a looking back at life before.
Yeah, and part of the beauty of this poem is that you can't necessarily make the words go one-to-one. There's a deeper meaning to them. There's a bigger picture that gets painted with these words. So I remember when I first tried to learn what does Auld Lang Syne mean, and it didn't make sense to me. But the more I read it and the more I think of that picture of times gone by, so things in the past, the more it becomes poignant. And more, I view this poem, this song, as a song of friendship, a song of togetherness, which, again, for most Robbie Burns things, I tend to think of them as songs of love. But this one, friendship, is I think the driving force behind it.
And I think the tune that they put to it is perfect. It's so simple. Like, we can all sing it, even if we don't quite know the words. Everybody kind of knows the chorus enough that you could join in if somebody else is singing. It feels nostalgic. Even if you've never listened to the verses or the words at all, you can feel the nostalgia to it. There's memory and friendship. I think that's the right word.
And one of the other charms of this verse, this poem, is that Burns didn't just make this up out of his own head. This is actually something that he collated. I believe when he first submitted this, he says he learned it from somebody else, and he tweaked it and made it his own. I'm sure he adjusted it, but this is really very much him honoring Scottish tradition and Scottish folk songs and gathering into a book that is now will never be forgotten because we all know this song.
Yeah, I didn't know that it wasn't his entirely. So that was fun for me. I think in particular, and we're going to walk through the verses because they are very good, but I think this song really gives people a verbalization of a parting, but without bitterness. It's a celebration, right? They're having a drink together and they're remembering times past. It's very wonderful in that way.
Yeah, with both sorrow and joy, with both good times and that little bit of nostalgia, regret, wistfulness that comes from a passing year or a passing time. And it does it masterfully. And you're right, the tune that gets associated with this, perfect. It is really perfect.
So I have a couple different versions of it because it was written in Scottish. Scots, what do they call it? In Scots?
Yeah, Scotch dialect.
But translating it is not one-to-one because there's things like pint stoup, which you did very well.
Thank you.
That was one I had to look up. What is a pint stoup? Something with a cup? But our versions are going to be a little bit different here, and I actually enjoy that about it because there's layered meaning with when you translate anything. You know, there's different ways that it could be translated, and that comes across here. But it starts, I think, very familiar to most people. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and the days of Auld Lang Syne? The days long past, the days we remember, looking back.
Yeah. Should they be forgot? I don't think so. And I don't think Robert Burns thinks so either. And of course, this moves into the chorus, right? For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne.
Toasting those past in that memory. The my dear for Auld Lang Syne, my dear. I love the Scottish, my Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
My Joe, my friend, my companion, my Joe.
That's true. In the one I read, I didn't do that, but in this other one I have printed out that has that. That's fun.
And surely you shall raise your glass. And this is the pint stoup.
That's right. And you'll be your pint stoup. You'll buy your cup of beer, basically.
And surely I'll raise mine. So the translations there, it's about either buying your drink or raising your glass to drink. But they're again, toasting the past. And that's what this is. I drink a toast to all that's past and the days of Auld Lang Syne.
Mm-hmm. I like the next one. We thraw have run about the braes and pooed the gooins fine. These were words I had to look up.
The gooins. Gooins. Daisies. We picked the daisies, the pretty daisies. So the English version I have says, we've walked these hills a weary mile where daisies grow so fine. Although there's also the picked the daisies fine. Multiple meanings.
Well, and I think that's probably a little bit more literal. And pooed the goins fine and pulled, picked. And then the word braes. I love the word braes. That shows up in a lot of Irish and Scottish poetry and literature. It's a hill. A brae is a hill.
Let's raise a glass and give a smile for days of Auld Lang Syne. That's the English. I actually like the Scots much better. That we've wandered many a weary foot.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And again, going back to this friendship motif, we definitely have the two. It's we trois, right? We two doing this. So it's not alone. You're with somebody else, but this is something that we have done together. A beautiful, a memorable moment. And I love that because that carries on then into the next verse. We twa have paddled in the burn. Burn was another one I think a lot of people would have to look up. It's a waterway. It's a stream. So we two have rowed in the water. We've sailed together.
I found a version that said, we've run this river far and long, from here to Evangeline.
I think that's a stretch.
I do too.
I think the words themselves really mean from morning until dinner time.
I think they put it
morning
in...
soon till dine.
Yes. Paddled in the stream from morning sun till evening, basically. Yeah, I think that Evangeline is for the rhyme.
Mm-hmm. I think so. That's the only way I can put that in.
But that one I even had to, I'm like, what does that name mean? That means good tidings, bearer of good news. Yeah. So it works in terms of the rhyming that they put together. And I think it'd be really hard to translate a song because you'd have to have it rhyme to a certain extent.
Oh, yeah, you really do. That's an important part of it. This second half of this stanza is one of my favorite of the entire poem, though. But seas between us broad have roared, Syne Auld Lang Syne. But seas between us broad have roared since those old times. So again, there's joy in this, there's memory, but there's sorrow here. They're not together anymore. There's seas that have come. Life has happened, and it paints the picture beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were walking the rivers and the hills that were familiar and together, but now they've been separated. So it's this looking back. The whole thing is an echo of this looking back, but in celebration and love.
Which takes us to the final one. And there's a hand, my trusty friend, and give me a hand o' thine, and we'll take a right good willing draught for Auld Lang Syne.
Mine ends with, let's drink to all that's come and gone for days of Auld Lang Syne.
I like that too. I think that's an appropriate modification.
So, brother, here is our glad willing draught to Auld Lang Syne.
To Auld Lang Syne. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our walk through this wonderful, wonderful song. Please read it yourself and sing it merrily this New Year's, and may it be a part of your life, and may it bring you joy as it has brought us joy. But we thought this would be a fantastic step off into other stories about new things, beginnings, endings. How fitting is it that the Greek god of doors is Janus, the two-faced, the god of beginnings and endings. And really, he was celebrated at the beginning of the year because it was a time of the ending of one year and the beginning of another. A door is something that can either be gone out of to begin a journey or entered into at the end of a journey. And so what we would like to talk about now are some creation stories. I'm going to touch on several of these really briefly, and then we are going to settle on one of the most beautiful creation stories ever told. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes, Janus. Is that for January?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
That is where the name comes from, the god of beginnings and endings. There was actually a door in, I believe, on the Palatine Hill in Rome that was the Temple of Janus. And the door was actually open in times of war and closed in times of peace. And so it was one of those again, beginnings and endings and changes, and it's been a big part of human existence all along.
Wait, go back to that. It was open during war because they were going? Is that literally we are going to war? So
Yes.
it's symbolic.
Yes.
Where did the door go?
Say that again. Where did the door?
Where did the door on the hill go? Like, was it just a door in a
It's a temple.
archway?
Yeah.
Oh, to the temple.
Yeah.
But they would always leave it open during times of
Yes.
war?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was said, for much of Roman, I said earlier Janus was the Greek god. I totally misspoke. He's the Roman god.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, it was one of those things where I think Numa, the second great king of Rome, was very proud the fact that the door was often shut during his reign, where for many kings, it was just never shut. It was always open for like centuries. And so it was a big deal when the door of Janus could be shut.
Interesting. Like the temple itself celebrating this Roman god, they decided that was how they'd honor times of war and peace.
Yeah.
I did not know that, brother.
The
That's
Romans
cool.
had all sorts of I know a handful of them, but they were a very religious people, and they had all sorts of traditions and customs and things, and some of them are fascinating.
Okay. We'll go into it. New beginnings.
Different creation stories in different cultures are so much fun to read through. Just about every culture has one. Many cultures have several. So I'm going to briefly hit on a couple of them. The Greeks, of course, everything begins with chaos. So the creation story of the Greeks is portrayed in the works of Hesiod. Hesiod, the great Greek author, in his Theogony, where he talks about chaos being born first, and then out of chaos comes earth and sky, and then this ongoing development of the gods that's fairly violent and fairly aggressive. Many of the early creation myths are fairly aggressive. The Norse one is particularly interesting. In the Norse myth, creation came from essentially salt water. Again, it's a chaos-based thing, but in the beginning, everything was ice and salt. And then out of this rime and salt, this ice and salt, came the first of the frost giants, Ymir. Ymer is how I usually see it spelled. And this Ymir, the first of the frost giants, was killed by Odin and his brothers. And then Odin and his brothers took the body of this frost giant and made the world. This is directly from the Younger Edda. They took the body of Ymir, carried it into the midst of Ginnungagap, and made of him the earth. Of his blood they made the seas and lakes. Of his flesh the earth was made, but of his bones the rocks. Of his teeth and jaws, and of the bones that were broken, they made stones and pebbles. His blood made the ocean. They took his skull and made thereof the sky, and raised it over the earth with four sides. So, in the Norse mythology, we are living in a giant. A dead frost giant is all of creation that we get to experience. There are others that are a little bit more gentle. I was not terribly familiar with one of the Hindu ones, so I will just read this out because this is fun. Vishnu sleeping on the cosmic serpent Ananta in a vast ocean, from whose navel, his belly button, a lotus sprouts, giving birth to Brahma, the creator god, who then creates the universe, its beings and elements, often from his own thoughts or body parts, all within endless cycles of cosmic creation and destruction overseen by Shiva, who is the goddess of destruction. So there we have a flowering lotus out of a belly button. I did a little bit of looking into a lot of kind of Native American and South American traditions, but they are so wildly different that I'm going to pass over them here because I don't think I can do them justice. Obviously, the creation story that I love the most comes from the book of Genesis, and I love that it has so much peace and power to it compared to much of the violence we see in some of the others. But today, we're going to talk about a very special mythical creation story. And I'll be honest, this was my excuse to start talking about the Silmarillion on this show. That's right, the Silmarillion, the great lifetime work of J.R.R. Tolkien, the background to the Lord of the Rings and his entire imaginary world. Today we are going to talk about the very first chapter, the Ainulindalë, the Song of the Ainur.
This is another word that it's best to just throw yourself at it, because if you try to take it slow, I stumble on it. Ainulindalë. You should try to say it. It's actually really fun. It rolls off the tongue. Ainulindalë. If I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry, because I love to say it this way. Again, I am nowhere near an expert on Tolkien. Like, I am so impressed with people who study his life and his work. I just got Tolkien Dogmatics from Pints with Jack, C.S. Lewis Reading Day. I won
Jody
a book.
is a winner.
I know, it was
She
so
is
fun.
a winner. It's awesome.
I never win drawings, ever.
You can't say that anymore, Jody.
This one time.
You are a winner now.
It was awesome. The author's name is Austin Freeman, and I've started it, and it is so thorough, and it's crazy the things he doesn't talk about because they have been addressed in other books. So his piece of it is extensive, but man, people have really studied the life and work of this man, as they should, because the Silmarillion, it's like reading the Bible of Middle-earth. If you've never picked it up, it even reads a lot like the Christian Bible, especially at the beginning. It is beautiful and poetic and so complete in its telling. Amazing.
And the Ainulindalë is where it starts. And if you're looking for a jump into this work, because this work is daunting, there's no doubt about that, this is a pretty good place to start, in part because it's short. This is really, in my book, it's only like 10 pages that this whole story is. But it's beautiful, and it will get your mind thinking. I don't know, did you ever start writing a creation story after reading this? I know I did.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
Did
it
you
just
finish?
made me. Oh no, and it was terrible. So it's gone now. But it makes you want to create. It makes you want to develop. This is going to be a little bit challenging to go through because I just want to read it all. We say that all the time in these books, and we mean it all the time in this books. But this one especially so, because his words are beautiful, and the way he crafts this is just wonderful. When I was in college, I remember I took a class on jazz. It was an understanding jazz class. And at one point, we had to do presentations. And I remember the professor getting furious with the students because they would start to play a jazz song and then cut it off to talk about them. And he got angry. He's like, no, play the song. You've started it. You can't cut it off there. And that's kind of the way I feel about this. When I start reading it, I want to finish the song. I want to read the whole thing, but I will desist. But I will read this very first line.
Wait, side note, I think there are two kinds of people in the world. Those who are okay stopping a song before the end, and those who are not okay with it. I am okay stopping a song in the middle. I live with people who are not. We are diametrically opposed.
My professor was not. That would get you a full letter grade. Take it off, let me tell you.
I think this, I mean, it's weird to even call it a chapter, but this beginning song, these first 10 pages, the Ainulindalë, it would hurt me to stop in the middle because it's not done yet. The beginning hasn't even really begun till you get to the end of it. So, sorry, go ahead.
There was Eru, the one, who in Arda is called a Iluvatar, and he made first the Ainur, the holy ones that were the offspring of his thought, and they were with him before aught else was made. That's beautiful. That's just beautiful. And it right immediately sets the entire groundwork for creation. There is a God, the one, Eru, Iluvatar. Immediately you learn that he has multiple names, that different people call him different things. And you can go into depth in what those names actually are translated and mean. But then you get the creation of the gods. These are the powers, the gods, the Ainur. And it makes sense because they are part of the mind of Iluvatar. They know some aspect of his personality, but no one of them can know all the mind of Iluvatar.
He spoke to them, propounding to them themes of music, and they sang before him, and he was glad. And it says, for a long time, each of those gods, the Ainur, the holy ones, they sing alone. They're each given certain gifts, and we learn more about each of them. But as they come from Iluvatar, they sing in isolation, and Iluvatar listens. And it says, in understanding of their brethren, of each other, they grew but slowly. Yet ever as they listened, they came to deeper understanding and increased in unison and harmony. And Iluvatar, the one who created them, he listens. He loves this music.
From the beginning, we learn things about the nature of the God of Tolkien's world, the God of his creation. This is a God who, first of all, is not, content's the wrong word, but he doesn't desire to be alone. He desires others. He desires to give and to participate with others than himself. That's amazing, because in many mythologies and folklore, that is not the way the gods act, but this is the way Iluvatar acts. And then the other thing, too, is his desire for them to interact with each other. Now, they're all on some level a reflection of him in some way, but the way they interact then grows in complexity and interest and fascination, and he loves that, and he's not jealous of it. So really, right off the start, we learn things about the nature of Iluvatar.
He commands them to make in harmony together a great music. And his creation, the creation of Middle-earth, is entirely a song. It is music, and not just as a metaphor. They sing it into being. And aspects of this creator god, Eru, the one, who in Arda is called Iluvatar. And if you've listened for a while, we did C.S. Lewis's Magician's Nephew a while back, and that is the other story I am familiar with, that there is a creation song when Aslan paces through the void and creates Narnia through his voice, through his song. And this is I would say, richer, more complex version of that.
Oh, yeah. I have to believe that Jack ripped that off.
I believe
the
he
idea
did.
he got from Tolkien. He published it well before this. This wasn't published till after Tolkien died. But I gotta believe that the two, as friends who were sharing each other's work, that the kernel of that came from Tolkien. And you're right. This is so much deeper and so much more potent.
I mean, no slight to Aslan's song.
Oh, no,
I
it's
love
beautiful.
it.
Yes. Yes.
But this is just so much more complete. This is the entire focus of this piece of this story.
And this is how it starts. Then Iluvatar said to them, of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now that ye make in harmony together a great music. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices, if he will. So several parts about that. Again, you could spend forever on every line of this. The flame imperishable. That shows up repeatedly in this chapter, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but we see it first here. This is something that dwells with Iluvatar, but it is a gift that he has given to the Ainur. The other thing to know is about this great music. So they've been singing, they've been learning music, learning each other, but this great music is to happen at his direction. He has a theme for it, a plan for it, but he wants them to adorn it. He wants them to make it their own and to make it pretty if they will. So that's the other component. This is purely voluntary. He is not forcing any of this on them, but he is giving them the opportunity to join in this great music of his own designing. It's masterful.
I also think it shows from the beginning that this is not chaos. This has order. Music always has order, even if it's dissonant and discord or rough harmonies or crazy tempos. There's order to it. There's a theme, and it progresses forward. So this is not chaos. This is the opposite. This is orderly as it develops, as it grows.
There's one other thing that, before we get to the music itself, about the setup here, because as this starts, it talks about their voices being like harps and lutes and pipes and trumpets and viols and organs, and it just goes on and on. The complexity, the diversity of sound being generated here. And it says, never since have the Ainur made any music like to this music. though it has been said that a greater still shall be made before Iluvatar by the choirs of the Ainur and the children of Iluvatar after the end of days. Then the themes of Iluvatar shall be played aright and take being in the moment of their utterance, for all shall then understand fully his intent in their part, and each shall know the comprehension of each, and Iluvatar shall give to their thoughts the secret fire, being well pleased. So we have a prophecy, we have an eschatological foreshadowing here in the very beginning, before the music is even sung, that even this, as great and beautiful and as glorious as it is a prelude. This is a practice, and that a pure, greater, more exalted theme will be played at the end of time.
Can you describe eschatological?
End times. It refers to discussion of the end times.
So a thing I love about Tolkien is if he references something and you're like, what is that? Children of Iluvatar, don't worry, he's going to tell you.
In depth.
He can only do one thing at a time, though. But this is one of my favorites. The music and the echo of the music went out into the void, and it was not void. Mm-hmm. So in that, the first mention of went out into the void is capitalized. This is a thing because nothing else has been made yet. It's Iluvatar and these children, the holy ones he's made, his descendants. But then it was not void.
Yeah.
The music is filling the void with something.
And now we get our first named character, the first individual that is not Iluvatar. To Melkor among the Ainur had been given the greatest gifts of power and knowledge, and he had a share in all the gifts of his brethren. He had gone often alone into the void places, seeking the imperishable flame, for desire grew hot within him to bring into being things of his own, and it seemed to him that Iluvatar took no thought for the void, and he was impatient of its emptiness. Yet he found not the fire, for it is with Iluvatar. Melkor. What a great name.
It is a good name. And Tolkien paid attention to names.
Oh, yeah.
1,000,000%. But it says that Melkor starts to weave these pieces of discord into the music. It says, straightway discord arose about him, and many of those that sang near him, they grew despondent, and their thought was disturbed, and their music faltered. But some, they become attuned to his music. They harmonize with it. They make something beautiful to offset the discord. I mean, this is music. This is a song. Mm-hmm. So it develops together. And isn't that true that sometimes there is silence from some pieces of the music and sometimes others are amplified? It is a song of creation, even with the discord. Iluvatar allows it. These all came from him. These are his immediate descendants, the holy ones. He created Melkor as this, and already there's discord, but it is allowed, and it is part of the song.
And it gets woven into it. And within this great song, there are going to be 3 themes. There are 3 subsets to the song. And so in this first theme, the song originally plays flawlessly. No disharmony, no discord, no mistakes. But it doesn't take long, as you say, for Melkor to step in and do everything you just described. It is said that Iluvatar smiles and raises his left hand, and then another theme works its way through.
Like and yet unlike to the former theme, and it gathered power and had new beauty. But here, the discord of Melkor responds to it. It rises in uproar in response to this new theme.
What struck me about this new theme, this second theme, is that it ends with the line, and this is a quote, Melkor had the mastery. That's pretty shocking. In this second theme of the 3 great themes, Melkor kind of takes over. He seems to be running the show. And Iluvatar, again, raises a hand. But this time, he lifts his right hand, and he's no longer smiling. Now, Iluvatar's face is stern.
It makes me think of A Princess Bride. He's like, I know something you do not know. I am not left-handed. But the face is stern. The right hand goes up. I do not mean to make light of it, but it's an awesome reference.
It is a fantastic reference. And again, I think you would enjoy reading this. I think anyone would enjoy reading this because it's beautiful. It says, "And behold, a third theme grew amid the confusion, and it was unlike the others, for it seemed at first soft and sweet, a mere rippling of gentle sounds and delicate melodies, but it could not be quenched, and it took to itself power and profundity. And it seemed at last that there were two musics progressing at one time before the seat of Iluvatar, and they were utterly at variance. The one was deep and wide and beautiful, but slow and blended with an immeasurable sorrow from which its beauty chiefly came. The other had now achieved a unity of its own, but it was loud and vain and endlessly repeated, and it had little harmony, but rather a clamorous unison as of many trumpets, braying upon a few notes."
The more of these stories we do, the more often I see this idea of opposites, where this poignancy of discord, sorrow, struggle, but also joy and endurance and wonder that offset it. So I want to say the children of Iluvatar, but that's not accurate. The children of Iluvatar come later.
Yes.
These are the Ainur, the singers, the gods. They're learning about what it means to be in balance.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning that joy and wonder and beautiful things are offset with that pain, that discord, but it makes it richer for the telling. It becomes this deeper, richer harmony, this more wonderful song because of it.
And that, I think, rolls right into the next line. This is speaking about that loud cacophony of Melkor, and it says, "And it essayed to drown the other music by the violence of its voice, but it seemed that its most triumphant notes were taken up by the other and woven into its own solemn pattern." So the high points of Melkor's song get woven into the beauty of this song that is rich in sorrow and profundity. That's incredible. That something that is so discordant, something that is so wrong, something so shouldn't be there, from somebody who is actively trying to break the harmony, can't do it. The theme of Iluvatar takes it in and makes those high points its own. And then here is the ending of the song. And this, again, I promise not to read the whole thing, but I have to read this because it's so good. "In the midst of this strife, whereat the halls of Iluvatar shook and a tremor ran out into the silences yet unmoved, Iluvatar arose a third time, and his face was terrible to behold. Then he raised up both his hands, and in one chord deeper than the abyss, higher than the firmament, piercing as the light of the eye of Iluvatar, the music ceased."
God rarely yells. It's quiet when Iluvatar speaks next. And he acknowledges them. Mighty are the Ainur, and mightiest among them is Melkor. But he's like, I'm going to show you what you just sang. The visual of what you all just sang. "But Melkor, you shall see that no theme may be played that hath not its uttermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite. For he that attempteth this shall prove but mine instrument in the devising of things more wonderful, which he himself hath not imagined."
How great is this? In a page and a half, Tolkien has portrayed the single greatest exposition I've ever come across on how free will and predestination intermingle. This is the perfect picture in my mind, and you can think about it forever. But he doesn't do it by trying to explain theology or philosophy or cause and effect. He just tells a story, but he tells it in such a way that we can grasp it, or at least grasp a shadow of a far greater truth, and it's wonderful.
It says the Ainur here, after Iluvatar speaks, they're afraid and they don't understand what was said to them. And Melkor, he has shame. It says, of which came secret anger. But Iluvatar rises and says, "Behold your music." He shows them the void, the capital V void. It is no longer void. The music has gone out into it. And now it is depicted as a new world made visible before them.
I love he tells them, this is your minstrelsy. Yeah, the word minstrel doesn't get used that often, and so that's great.
I love this. They watch it unfold. It says, this world began to unfold its history, and it seemed to them that it lived and grew. They're watching their music, their song as it develops. They get to see the whole movie.
Yeah, and they can see, hey, I did that. That one's my part. I did that. And they're so excited. But they also are thrilled to learn that there are things within the song that they never thought of, that have come only from the mind of Ilúvatar. And highest on this, most important, that nobody saw coming, are the children of Ilúvatar.
The children of Ilúvatar are elves and men, the firstborn and the followers. So if you read The Lord of the Rings, the elves are often called the firstborn. That was foretold from the very beginning, well before any of the Ainur had thought of them. They weren't singing of creating other beings. It was much simpler. These are the children of Ilúvatar, not of the Ainur. These are coming later. The world has to be built for them first.
Without ever knowing they were coming. They built it without ever knowing. And again, there's so much that is profound within these. This next part I think is fascinating, where he talks about Ilúvatar chose a place for their habitation in the deeps of time and in the midst of innumerable stars. So he out of this great cosmos that exists, right? This infinite expanse, this huge void and the stars and everything, he picks one point for the children of Ilúvatar to come and live on. And some of the Ainur actually go down and bind themselves to this point, become a part of it. And it says, and this habitation might seem a little thing to those who consider only the majesty of the Ainur and not their terrible sharpness. As who would take the whole field of Arda for the foundation of a pillar and so raise it until the cone of its summit were more bitter than a needle. I mean, so it's this idea of this unspeakable scope of power and strength and might and creation come to a pinpoint on this little planet that we will later come to know as Middle-earth. This tiny point. And again, he says that seems like it's little until you think about the sharpness that all this gets focused into this. And that is deep in its own right.
When I read The Lord of the Rings, I read the Silmarillion much later, after I'd read the trilogy several times. And I always wondered why it was the Third Age. Why? Oh, it's right here. He tells you in the beginning that elves and men won't come until that time, that needlepoint time in history that is still unfolding.
Now, I will caution, because this is an easy mistake to make with this, of just assuming those three themes are the three ages of Middle-earth. That's not actually true. It doesn't line up quite like that, but it is true that within the third theme, the children of Ilúvatar come. Now, remember, when later we talk about the ages of Middle-earth, those all have the children of Ilúvatar in them. Elves are created and are in the first, second, third age of Middle-earth. So it's not a one-to-one between the themes and the ages of Middle-earth, but still, yes.
I was going with this. For the children of Ilúvatar were conceived by him alone, and they came with the third theme, and were not in the theme which Ilúvatar propounded at the beginning, and none of the Ainur had part in their making. So it is part of his later theme. You're right. The third age is a different thing, because Tolkien's so complex, but he's very thorough, amazingly thorough, but they are part of this third theme.
So far, we have met Ilúvatar, and we've met Melkor, and we've been told of the other Ainur, but here we actually get another name, another one of the mighty of the Ainur, and this is Ulmo. Ulmo becomes essentially the god of the waters. But in this, as he is showing him creation, Ilúvatar gets to share with him what good can come out of this mess that Melkor has tried to create. And again, this is beautiful. He says, Melkor hath made war upon thy province. He hath bethought him of bitter cold immoderate, and yet hath not destroyed the beauty of thy fountains, nor of thy clear pools. Behold the snow and the cunning work of frost. Those wouldn't have worked Those wouldn't have been there if Melkor hadn't thought of this bitter cold. And then he goes on to talk about Melkor has devised heats and fire without restraint, and hath not dried up thy desire, nor utterly quelled the music of the sea. Behold rather the height and glory of the clouds, and the ever-changing mists, and listen to the fall of rain upon the earth. So, again, Olmo may have thought of water. That was his part in the music, or at least he was a big part of the water in the music. But then you took the cold of Melkor, which he meant for evil, and you get snowmen. You get snowflakes. You get snowball fights. And then you take the heat, this fire that was meant to burn and consume everything. Well, it didn't burn and consume everything, but it did give vapor. It gave rain and clouds. And just, it's incredible to think how this all was woven into the song.
I like the pairing of the Ainur. Here's where, so Olmo, you mentioned, who water is his song. He feels that, he created that, and he marvels at these other things made of water that he had not conceived. But Iluvatar teaches them about it. But he is paired and encouraged because he has a heart and a partnership with another Ainur named Manwe, who is of the sky. Manwe's song is of the sky. So here, water and sky are paired together because their song can grow more complex, more rich together. And Iluvatar teaches them this idea of balance through the things that can be greater when offset with the discords of Melkor. He will tear down, but then these other things will be made.
And there's another great twist that happens right now, because as the Ainur are beholding this glorious vision, and they are in it and excited about it, and as Olmo is learning about his interactions with Manwe and Aule, the god of the earth, and they're all working together, it fades. The whole, like a video getting switched off. Everything that Iluvatar has shown them hasn't actually happened yet. They have performed the song, but the song was not actually the act of creation, because the power of creation is not in the Ainur. They cannot do it. The power of creation is within Iluvatar. And so he says, but Iluvatar called to them and said, I know the desire of your minds, that what ye have seen should verily be, not only in your thought, but even as ye yourselves are, and yet other. Therefore I say, Ea, let these things be. And I will send forth into the void the flame imperishable, and it shall be at the heart of the world, and the world shall be, capital B. And those of you that will may go down into it. And suddenly the Ainur saw afar off a light, as it were a cloud with a living heart of flame, and they knew that this was no vision only, but that Iluvatar had made a new thing, Ea, the world that is.
When the world disappears, I think this is important. It says darkness, which they had not known before except in thought. They actually experience darkness. The Ainur here had to learn much before they could be workers in this great act. So yes, the creation act, Ea, begins it. The flame imperishable is sent out from Iluvatar. I love that they have to be willing to go.
Yeah.
If they are willing to work, if they are willing to help create the vision that they now love, you go. But then they are participants in it. They are stuck inside of that story. They commit themselves to this world and the shaping of it. So this is not a lighthearted, I'll go down for a day or two. I'm a god. No, they become part of the story.
Yeah, until the end, until that second song that was foretold. And this is so much fun to me because this is almost over. But this is where we start to get some of the names of the Valar. So the Ainur are the holy ones, right, that were born of Iluvatar's thought. but the ones that come down into the world, the most powerful, become the Valar. These are the powers. And through much of the Silmarillion, we'll hear a lot more about the Valar because there's more that get mentioned in this first chapter. But there are 3 that get mentioned, and we've already mentioned them, but I want to say them again because now you have trivia when you would go to parties and you want to talk about the Valar. You can at least know the names that are fairly easy to say. Manwë. So again, Manwë is the greatest of the Valar, and it even says he is a brother to Melkor in the mind of Iluvatar. Melkor is more powerful, but Manwë is close, and he ends up becoming the king of the Valar and the rightful ruler of Arda. You then have Ulmo. Ulmo, we've already met, is essentially the god of water. It says he knows most about the music of Iluvatar. He's not as powerful as Manwë, but he knows the music. And this is why music always has a song. It's said that even now, the music of the Ainur resides in the song of water, of fountains, of the ocean, of waves. And then you have Aule. Aule, the shaper, the craftsman, the maker, who is in touch with earth, but also loves smithing and creation and making. And so many more stories of these 3 come on. We learn about their spouses and we learn about their activities, and it is great, but they are the first of the 3. And then, of course, you have the dark Valar, Melkor.
The details about them are wonderful, where they can take a shape. They took to themselves shape and hue. And because they're in this world and they have to create it, it says, because they were drawn into the world by love of the children of Iluvatar. These 3 you mentioned, they already love the people to come, elves and men. They are building this for them. They've seen the vision of what it's going to be later, and they don't know all the pieces, but they take shape relative to that. They choose to look somewhat in their likeness, or they can. They can appear and they can disappear, at least to the eyes of elves and men. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
What this reminds me of is, have you read Paralandra? Mm-hmm. So at the end of Paralandra, where the Oyarses, the titular spirits of the planets, are preparing themselves to honor the Adam figure, they ask the main character, who's just a human like you and me, how should we look? How should we present ourselves? And it is a wild scene because some of the ways they present themselves are actually like harmful to the observation of a mortal. I mean, it totally takes you back to the angels in Ezekiel with wheels within wheels and eyes within eyes. And it reminds me of this, where they can take on these different forms and shapes. They're neither less nor more by doing so. They can remove these shapes and still be themselves. And he describes it almost like clothes, where we can take off clothes and we're still ourselves. They can do this with their shapes, but they pick their shapes for the love of the children of Iluvatar because they kind of want to look like them.
Meanwhile, Melkor thinks this place is his. He says, this shall be my own kingdom, and I name it unto myself. The other Ainur, Valar, say no.
Yeah.
And Melkor, at some point, he emerges, it says, like a flame that withers with heat and pierces with a deadly cold. Thus began the first battle of the Valar with Melkor for the dominion of Arda. Mm. This is an old history. There has been war here from very early on. They are creating the earth, Middle Earth here, and there is already war. Even before elves, who are the immortal ones, they live forever, basically. They don't remember this.
Yeah, it says they learn about this from the Valar, but the Valar don't like talking about it. So this is where this story comes from. And this is part of how Tolkien shapes the Silmarillion, because this entire work is lore from the elves. And so it's fascinating because the elven perspective is so important when you're reading this to understand how they're viewing what happens. And this is where we first gets introduced, that's how they learn this story. One other thought that I've spent quite a bit of time on recently is this idea of the binding, this idea of these powers binding themselves to Arda, to the earth, and what that means. It seems to me consistent through Tolkien's Legendarium that by binding yourself to something, you do gain a power from it. And so the Valar that come down, not all of them are the mightiest. Not all of them, none of them are as strong as Melkor. But by that sacrifice, that act of love of binding themselves to Arda, they take up a power within Arda that's greater than if they were refused to bind themselves to it. I don't think that the other Ainur up in the halls of Iluvatar could have the same impact as those that are there, kind of on the ground. And I think that also speaks to part of why Melkor is so powerful and why he alone can fight against the whole host of the Valar. If Manwë is just, a step below Melkor, you would think this whole group of good Valar would be able to take out this one evil one. I think he has bound himself so exclusively to Arda as his realm and his kingdom that not only does he have power in his own right, but I think he has gained additional power over the land. The others still have a tie to Iluvatar and to, the halls of eternity. Melkor has given that up. And so I think he does have power, at least for a time, within this creation. And where I've come to this actually is through a lot of the rest of his stories. I think we see this in Sauron with the ring, right? That ring has taken Sauron's own power. That is where the power of the ring came from, with Sauron himself. But Sauron, by binding himself in this way to the ring, somehow managed to increase it. And so I think we see that there. I think we also see it in two other places that I'm only going to briefly touch on because we haven't got there yet. One is Tom Bombadil. Bombadil has set up an area for himself in the Fellowship of the Ring, and he won't go past the boundaries. He has bound himself to that area. And I think that explains some of the power he has, but also why he can't really leave it and probably wouldn't have as much power as if he left it. And then the other thing that this made me think about is someone named Melian. Someday we'll do more of the Silmarillion. Melian is of the Ainur. She's one of the lesser Ainur, but she ends up marrying a mortal elven king. Mortal elven. Elves are immortal, but she ends up marrying one of the children of Iluvatar. And for millennia, she keeps the land safe through what's called the Girdle of Melian. It's basically an enchantment that she weaves to keep it safe, where even Melkor can't get through it. How could a lesser Ainur do that? I think it has to do with the binding. By binding yourself to this specific part of Middle-earth, and more than that, to this specific elf, I think she gained power. And I'm kind of ranting a little here because I've never come across this anywhere else, but this has been a thought that's been growing in my mind, and I think it has merit.
To use maybe a too simple analogy, if you were to pick some random hobby, underwater basket weaving, and dedicate to your life to underwater basket weaving, you would presumably be very good at it. Mm-hmm. If you choose a specific targeted thing, pick another random thing.
I like underwater basket weaving. I think he nailed it with that one.
Spelunking. I don't know.
Stamp collecting.
Yes, anything. If that is the one thing you do with all of your focus, all of your time, all of your attention, all your heart, it's your hobby and your job. Even if you weren't great at it to begin with, you're going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a thing about reps.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I that is a binding, right? This commitment to something. And the more diverse those interests, those focuses are, it doesn't mean you won't be good at a bunch of things. But the more you focus on a thing, yeah, you're going to be stinking good at it.
Yeah.
So simple analogy, but I think that speaks to the idea of binding, where it is even if Melkor is more powerful overall at more things, if he doesn't have that dedicated focus on a single thing, he perhaps cannot be as strong in that. It's also, speaking about Melkor, it's a lot easier to break things than to build things.
True.
So he is given strength and intelligence and kind of spread of focus. But yeah, it's way easier to knock a glass off the table than to make one. Mm-hmm. So the Valar are creating, they're sub-creators, right, of Iluvatar, to use a Tolkien phrase. They sub-create inside this world that he has created for them to sing into and, make this music come to life. But it's really easy to break stuff.
Yeah. And I am so excited because we are come to the end of this, but I am so excited for the Valaquenta, the next chapter, which someday we'll have to go into. I do think we should probably end this by reading just this final line here. But before I do that, any other thoughts or any other things you want to go over in this?
I just think it's such a beautiful telling of a made-up world. He just came up with this out of his heart and his mind, Tolkien. And it has these 3 phases, okay? So the music is the first thing, the song, the singing, and the harmonies. And then they are given this vision, and they can see it start to play out, almost a preview. Not that they know that, not that the Ainur know that, but they can see this manifestation of the song as they sing it. And then there's the work, okay? Auld, it let it be. But then there's work to be done to make that vision real. And I think that's each layer of that is more complex. Okay, and 3s are always important in any mythology and fairy tales. And so I love this, how he built the 3 into it. The 3rd theme is where the children of Iluvatar will come someday. But there's still work to be done. It's not enough just to be like, poof, magically it happens. No, it's richer than that. It's more complex than that. Because how could it be a history of peoples without it?
Yeah.
It's this rich history and foundation of something that matters, that has meaning, even though the individual players, even the immortal elves, kind of come and go. Mm-hmm. Most of them don't last forever. The Ainur are here forever. They see all the iterations of the story, and there's still work to be done.
Yeah.
It's very good.
So good. Yet it is told among the Eldar. The Eldar are the elves. The word means the people of the stars. Yet it is told among the Eldar that the Valar endeavored ever, in despite of Melkor, to rule the earth, and to prepare it for the coming of the firstborn. And they built lands, and Melkor destroyed them. Valleys they delved, and Melkor raised them up. Mountains they carved, and Melkor threw them down. Seas they hollowed, and Melkor spilled them. And naught might have peace or come to lasting growth, for as surely as the Valar began a labor, so would Melkor undo it or corrupt it. And yet their labor was not all in vain, and though nowhere and in no work was their will and purpose wholly finished, and all things were in hue and shape other than the Valar had at first intended, slowly, nonetheless, the earth was fashioned and made firm. And thus was the habitation of the children of Iluvatar established at the last in the deeps of time and amidst the innumerable stars. And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.